Park, and then out on social media they put out to show up at Meadowlake Park. So that went out to everybody. So it's not one high school or two high schools that was involved. This is people putting out on social media saying, come, and the bad people come. And that's what we saw the other night. The audio of the shooting is something that would scare you to death. It's something that you would probably hear that happened in Iraq, Afghanistan, or even the Ukraine. Fully automatic weapons being shot, well over 50 rounds that are shot. Your prom or even going to a party is something that you want to remember, and you remember it in a good way. And I guarantee you all of those that were there Saturday morning is going to remember this and not in a good way. 11 people injured that ended up at the hospital. Many, many more that doesn't have a visible wound but have psychological wounds, mental wounds, stuff that they're going to have to live with the rest of their life. The terror that they experienced was something that they will never forget. I stood up here a couple days ago with the Smalls family after their son had been killed, and how the killer had been released, and we talked about the pain and suffering that they have. I'm fortunate today that I'm not standing here with parents of any of these kids that were injured the other night. And it's not because the shooters didn't try to kill them. They did. They just shot indiscriminately into a crowd of people. And I talked about when I stood up here with the Smalls family is that the crack that we've got in our criminal justice system, and I'm going to talk about that in just a second, and that crack that we have is demonstrated in this case too. It's terrible that I have to stand here and talk about constantly about catch and release, and that's what we've already seen in this case. We haven't even caught all the people involved in it yet, and we're seeing those that we've already caught that are being released. We're going to put up, as our deputies arrived, a car took off at a high speed with no lights on, so we gave chase to it, blue light siren going. We saw them throw guns out of the car. We recovered those guns, and these two that you see here were arrested, Full Wiley and Kelly. Now, what's significant about these, and they had a gun. This is fair to stop for blue lights. They had drugs, but they threw a gun. Now, both of these were put in the jail at 4:49. That's when they were booked. Full Wiley was released at, 8:40. He was released at 11 o'clock on a personal recognizance bond, which means all he had to do was say, I'm going to be a good boy and I'm going to show up for court when I'm supposed to. Why in the world is somebody who's involved in a shooting, and we haven't determined if the guns that he used, because it's going to take a while, but why would you even go to a party and have a gun? Here he is running from the cops, has a gun. He's at a party where 11 people just being injured. We're still in the middle of the investigation. And our bond court magistrate gives him a personal recognizance bond. Just lets him go. Go. We're not gonna make you have to put up anything. You go. So he's released on a personal recognizance bond. His partner's with him, Taquan Kelly. He gets a bond. He gets a $10,000 bond, knowing that he's already out on a $50,000 bond for having a gun. That he had that on April the 16th. He's out on bond for that. But that's not all. On March the 1st, he's released on a $2,500 bond for having a gun. So this is the third time that he has been caught with a gun, and he continuously gets out. He was booked in that morning. He was released last night also. So he's out. What do you think both of them have done? They went out and got guns again. They've already demonstrated they don't care about human life. And our bond court system is failing us. These bond court magistrates are letting people like this out back on the streets where they're hurting people. I am sick and tired of having to stand up here at a press conference and talk about that. The focus should be right now catching everybody involved in it. We've got two that were involved. We know they're there. They ran. They have a gun. Where are they at? They're back out. They're back out. That is a huge crack in our criminal justice system that's got to be filled in and stopped. I know our General Assembly is about through with this legislative year. They've got some binding laws that they're looking at doing and changing. God, I just pray that you do it, please. Please. Think about these 11 kids who were injured Saturday morning. Think about them, okay? When you're up there debating about should we keep people like this in jail, think about those 11 kids. Don't think about these. Think about the 11 kids who were injured and the many more that's going to be injured if we continue to let people like this out on bond and on our streets. Our investigation has showed that we had multiple shooters. They just showed up and started shooting a lot of times. So fortunate and so glad and so thankful that right now we believe that everybody's going to survive. Their lives have been changed, but I don't believe we're going to lose any lives over this shooting. But it's not because those who were doing the shooting didn't try. And we're talking about this shooting. We're not even saying anything about the 4 shootings we had last night. 2 in the city of Columbia, 2 in Richland County. 4 more people shot last night in separate instances. One of them in the city involved a group of young people. One of them gets shot. Law enforcement arrives. Nobody wants to give their name. Nobody wants to talk or say anything. The mother of one of them shows up and says, y'all don't talk. Y'all don't say anything to the cops. That's one of the problems we got is those parenting skills that you just saw last night or this morning where a parent shows up and tells the young people, y'all don't talk. Don't say nothing. Don't say anything. And I've stood here before and talked about it. It starts at the home. It talks with parents. That's got to take some accountability for your young people. This shooting that occurred Saturday morning, 1:20, late. Where were the parents at? The parents know where your kids were at? Did your parents know where your kids were at with guns? And why not? So we as a community has got to put a stop to this. We have to put a stop to people like this continuously getting out on bond. We've got to put a stop to our kids having these guns and going out here because guns, as I've said before, are going to get you 1 or 2 places, in the prison and the cemetery. Luckily, we didn't have anybody going to the cemetery so far from the shooting the other night. The ones involved, you're going to jail. And I'm speaking to you right now. If you were involved in that shooting, you're going to get caught. You're going to get caught. And if you think wearing a mask and sneaking around a building and shooting into a crowd makes you a man, that's nothing but a coward. You're nothing but a coward to do something like that. Shoot girls in the back, shooting females in the back, shooting people just in a crowd. Does that make you somebody? Does that give you a reputation within your group of people that you run with? No, all it does is make you a coward, and you're going to be caught, and you're going to be held accountable. We're going to catch you, and we're going to do what we're supposed to do. Hopefully the criminal justice system will continue to do what they're supposed to do also. But the message is you're going to be caught. We're going to get you. Parents, please monitor your kids. Please help us out. Legislators, help us out. Pass bond reform. Get on these bond court masters and make them do something that they should do, and that's protect people and hold people accountable. This investigation is continuing. We've got a big team of investigators from the Sheriff's Department that this is a priority. We're going to make sure that we get this cleared up as fast as we can. It's tragic what happened. It's something that we see across America, and it's here right here in Richland County. It happened. But we're going to put a stop to it. I guarantee you that. We're going to put a stop to it. Questions?
Is this gang related?
We haven't ruled that out yet. Again, you have people who say they got gang affiliations, they're trying to make a name for themselves, that's really making a name for yourself if you're in a gang that you're shooting a bunch of girls running away in the back. Yeah, that's makes you nothing but a coward. So that's one angle that we're looking at.
What preceded the gunfire? Was there any motive?
Nothing, and not to cut you off, nothing. Just people showing up somewhere that they're not welcome or they're not part of a celebration and just pulling out guns and starting shooting. That's what's hard to explain because everybody wants to know, well, what caused this to happen? These people who do these things, they don't need any cause. They just show up with guns and they start shooting. These people who were shot, the victims, they wasn't target for anything. Girls running away and getting shot in the back, young men who are there getting shot in the legs and the parts that didn't have anything to do with anything except for being there. That's what makes this scary about these people with these guns, and that's why we got to stop them.
You mentioned, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
You mentioned these flash parties have been sort of happening throughout, this is a two-part question. One, when about did you start seeing that, and then have you ever had any issues, not necessarily shootings, but any conflicts at those parties before?
Yeah, we started seeing it probably about a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
And yes, we've had some other issues with gunfire and other things going on at these flash parties. We're talking about 100, 200 kids showing up at one place. And again, it's not kids there just to hang out with their friends. It's just any and everybody shows up. Because when you put it out on social media, everybody sees it. So everybody shows up. Again, we had people there from Great Falls. How far? That's not in Columbia area. It's not even in the Midlands, but they see it on social media, so, hey, we're going to come to it. The hoodlums see that too. The bad guys see that too. And they show up and they do what they did the other night.
Okay, so they're, in the past, conflicts are not necessarily between the students, they're usually from outside.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I'm not going to say they're from outside. They're from this area. Most of them tend to be this area, but
From outside the group.
right, outside the group. But again, when you put it on social media, what group are you appealing to? It's come one, come all.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, okay, everybody that goes to X school show up. It's for everybody to show up.
Was it legal for like all those minors to be like at that park at that time? Like, is that okay?
Now the park's closed. The park is closed, so they were basically trespassing there. But again, that's what these flash parties do. They'll show up at a park. They'll show up at a shopping center. They'll show up at a corner gas station and just take over an area. And again, sometimes nothing happens. We get there and we disperse them, and sometimes there ends up being people pulling out guns and shooting. That's why. Just ask why.
And were multiple weapons found on Paul Wiley and Kelly?
I think we've recovered at least one weapon so far that they threw from the car, and there's probably additional ones that we're looking for. But again, they had a gun. Why would you be there with a gun? Why would you run from the cops if you haven't done anything? I mean, that's, to me, when somebody's looking at setting bond on someone, those are common sense things that I ought to tell you. One, they're there with a gun, shouldn't be there with a gun. That's just looking for trouble. Two, you run from the cops. There's got to be a reason that you run from the cops. So why should you just not even get a slap on the wrist? You just say, here, sign your name and get out of jail. And why would someone who's already out on a $50,000 bond and another $2,500 bond get one even lower, get one at $10,000? It's hard to follow the logic with that. Why, if you got a bond here, you get caught with a gun again, well, I'm going to give you something down here. That makes no sense. Hopefully these mashers that are doing these things, I hope they start being questioned a little bit on why. Maybe they should be held accountable like we're held accountable for what we do. Those of us who wear this uniform, we're held accountable every single day what we do. Maybe some of these other people that's involved in the criminal justice system needs to be held accountable also.
Where was the Airbnb that the flash party first started at?
One of them was in Hopkins. I believe in the Hopkins area.
And then how many suspects do we think were involved in this shooting?
I'm not going to give a number at this point, but there was multiple shooters, multiple people there with guns that were shooting.
Was it back and forth gunfire?
It was just shooting. Just people with guns sneaking around a corner with masks on, shooting. Just people just shooting in crowds. And, you know, when people are shot in the back, that kind of tells you that they're running away. And you shoot them in the back, shoot girls in the back, you know, that's coward. That's a coward.
You mentioned, it looks like everyone's gonna survive. Is there any update on the victim's condition?
No, again, you have some that are serious conditions. You got some having surgeries today. I guess the biggest question I've asked is, do we think they're going to survive? And the answer is, so at this point, we think they're all going to survive. Again, you had 9 that were shot, 1 that was run over, who really sustained some serious injuries, and another one trying to get away. That person's hand was cut up pretty bad. So, all right, thank y'all.